Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wait, just let me share one link so that the participants can also benefit from it. This one is not really directly related, but indirectly related to some issues which you can see it later. All right, so okay, so I'm sharing the slides first so that we can start. Okay, so this is our discussion today, family ethics in Islam. And you will see, so as I said previously, we discussed all the preliminary issues in Islamic ethics. We talked about the definition, we talked about the concept of bir, the concept of good and bad in Islam. We talked about the core ethics of Islam. All these were the preliminary issues. Now from today, we are each session we are going to cover different areas of ethics in Islam. So today we are discussing family ethics in Islam. So you can see here, what do we mean by family? Right. So when we talk about family, we are talking about two types of family and two types of relationship. One where the relationship is between husband and wife. So that is one part of a family. And then the other, the relationship of parents and the children. Right. So this is family as well. What happens in the contemporary Western discussion, when we talk about family, normally the family is always from the perspective of husband and wife. The parenthood, the relationship of parents with their children, these are normally not discussed in the family ethics, right? So in Islam, both of these two aspect is important when we talk about family ethics. So relationship between husband and wife, and the other one, relationship between parents and the children. So the institution of family in Islam, family is the basic unit of society, and therefore Islam lays great emphasis on the family system and its ethical values. The basis of family is marriage through a legal contract. Islam prescribes rules to regulate family life so that both the spouses can live in tranquility, security, and love. Right. So this is very important. It's a very important institution in Islam, family institution, and family institution is, you see, when we talk about civilization, which our respected Dr. Kabui is teaching, Islam, knowledge and civilization, civilization will have the backbones, and the backbone of civilization is institutions. The family institution, financial institution, economic institutions, legal institution, all these institution will, right? So here we are discussing about ethics, family ethics, and this is one of the backbone of a civilization Without family institution, we cannot have a society. Without society, we cannot have a community. Without community, we cannot have a country, a state, right? So this is the starting point. So that's why in Islam, the individual perfection in terms of akhlaq is important, because that perfection will have effect on the next stage, where individual becomes a family, right? So that's why Islam emphasizes the rules and regulations. Islam regulates family institution. Okay. Marriage in Islam has aspects of ibadah, ritual worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sense that it is in accordance with His commandments, where a husband and wife should love and help each other and rear their children to become true vicegerents, Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. Right? So you can see marriage can become ibadah. It can become a source of worship. But what are the conditions? Provided that that family is following those rules and regulations set by the Quran and Sunnah with the divine guidance, right? So if that is happening in a family, so that the entire activity of the family is a worship, a ibadah itself. And Islam considers marriage to be one of the most virtuous and approved institutions. It is a institution which Islam doesn't want it to have corruption, because because this is the basic institution. If this institution is corrupted, because you see, individuals make family and family makes individuals, right? Because when family comes, then we have this production, we have children, individuals coming out from family, and they go and form another family. All right, so what happens if the family institution is corrupted? That means the individual who is coming out from that corrupted family will be corrupted as well. Right? So that's why Islam really cares, it regulates, it makes sure that this institution is virtuous and approved, right? So that the individual who is going to be the product of this family institution will be also a good human being. Okay. Now, the basic principles. Okay, so when we talk about family in Islam, there are some basic principles. Family as a divinely inspired institution, right? So it is not where family institution is formed out of human desire, but actually it is a direction, it is an intuition from God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to form this institution. So it is a divinely inspired institution, right? So marriage has been described as one of the signs of Allah's power and blessings. You can see here Surah Ar-Rum, chapter Ar-Rum, verse 21. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا فِي إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. All right, so this is chapter 30, Surah Ar-Rum, and verse number 21. And among his signs is that he has created for you spouses from among yourselves, so that you may live in tranquility with them. And he has created love and mercy between you. Verily, in that are signs for those who reflect. Okay, now you see, the naturally, the fitrah, the natural disposition of human being, uh, Allah has actually made the partner, the spouse, a source of tranquility for both, for each other. Okay, and there is love between each other and mercy, but it is the corruption of the individual which disturbs this, right? So when the individual is corrupted, husband is corrupted or the wife is corrupted, then what happens? The mawadda is lost, the mercy is lost, right? So litaskunu is lost. Taskunu is where both are supposed to be tranquility for each other, right? So that's why human being is supposed to perfect themselves. That's why we are having this class on ethics and akhlaq in Islam, so that human being individual can be a good spouse, right? And we can achieve this what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying in this ayah, right? Okay, so marriage is part of the Prophet's sunnah. Marriage is part of because the Prophet ﷺ said it is my sunnah, right? The Prophet's sunnah, that means prophets will marry, right? So, they will not have a marriage, a relationship with another woman out of wedlock, but they will make sure that they marry a woman, right? So marriage is part of my sunnah. Whoever runs away from my path is not from among us, right? So that means whenever we want to form a family, we are supposed to start with this important aqd, this important marriage ceremony, so that we can start that institution, right? So faith constitutes the bedrock for the institution of the family. A Muslim is not permitted to marry a non-Muslim. So you can see sometimes people take this in a very negative sense, that why one person holding one religion cannot marry to another. They think that when Islam stops them, they see it in a very unfair injustice. They think this is unjust, not justice. But actually, Islam is trying to be just, because both spouse, if they are having the faith, that faith is the bedrock which will make each spouse a good human being, and through that good character and good behavior, they will be able to serve the that three things which we mentioned in the ayah, right? The tranquility, love, mercy, right? So they would be able to um, um, achieve that in their marriage if the faith is there, right? So sometimes it really becomes difficult for people, especially when they have culture shock, when two different people with a different faith marry, life becomes very miserable. um, okay, family institution is a social contract. All right, nikah means aqd and not a divine contract. In the Quran, marriage is referred to mithaqan ghalidha, strong covenant, right? It is a strong covenant. The only legitimate way to establish family is through a proper marriage, right? Another thing which is very important in marriage is equality of the sexes, right? So sometimes what happens, people think like many people have misinterpreted those verses of the Quran, which is saying that a man is the maintainer of the house of the wife, but that does not mean that man is given more priority in Islam than the woman. In nikah, in marriage, both of them have equal rights. Responsibility is a different thing, right? That is man's responsibility to maintain the family, right? He is rijaluna qawwamuna ala nisa. This does not mean man is going to rule the woman. It means man is going to maintain the family institution. It is his job to look for bread and butter. All right, it is his job to make sure proper house is there, make sure children are getting food, children are getting better education. It is his job to go and get those means, right? So it doesn't mean he is the boss. Everyone is having their own role to play. All right, so equality is there, right? And this will be, you'll see after a while it will be emphasized more, inshallah. Okay. um, Measures to avoid intimate relationship outside the bond of marriage. Islam is very particular about this, right? Prohibition of looking with desire at the opposite sex, opposite gender, right? People should be dressed properly. Prohibition of excessive beautification, tabarruj, khalwa, uh, this proximity in a place of two individual who are not married in a place where they might end up having sexual relationship which is out of wedlock. All right, so khalwa is prohibited. Prohibition of boyfriends, girlfriends. All right, so all these are actually sometimes taken in a very negative sense, that Islam is trying to actually um, take away the freedom. And as we discussed, if you have read my slides which I shared before, you will see there that actually any freedom, as far as a freedom doesn't harm an individual, doesn't harm another person, or doesn't harm environment, then Islam is allowing that freedom. But a freedom which starts to harm another individual, right? So normally when people are having this extra marital or intimate relationship out of wedlock, what happens? Because you see, rights cannot be preserved. If the woman becomes pregnant out of wedlock, she cannot claim for the right for that child. Most of the time, the man who did that, he runs away, disappears. Right? We have this case of many young single mothers, uh, and we have this irresponsible boys in our community who doesn't want to take that responsibility, that is the child, or his child. He should now come and fulfill that rights, provide they don't want to do that, right? So you can see, in a way, Islam is trying to protect that the dignity, right? We'll be discussing about the preservation of life, preservation of dignity, preservation of wealth, preservation of faith. All this we'll be discussing in one of the sessions, which is called Maqasid Sharia, objectives of the Sharia. So when we have these prohibitions in Islam, these prohibitions are meant to preserve, to protect the individuals, right? So sometimes individuals thinking it's a freedom, they end up damaging themselves, they end up harming themselves, or they end up harming another individual, right? So Islam comes in and says, no, you should not do this. So that's why prohibition is there for that purpose, right? So all right, so we'll emphasize this prohibition of looking with desire at the opposite gender, because Islam wants human beings to be people with chastity, people with dignity, people with marwa, people with every human being is supposed to have their own pride, right? Own ghairah, right? So these are some of the terms I'm using, all right? Ghairah, marwa, all right? So dignity, self-dignity. So how to protect or how to prevent um, tarnishing someone else's dignity, right? So Quran and the Sunnah Hadith is providing us tools. So one of the tool here is prohibition of looking with desire at the opposite gender, right? قل للمؤمنين يغضوا من أبصارهم ويحفظوا فروجهم وقل للمؤمنات يغضضن من أبصارهن ويحفظن فروجهن. So you see, the equality is there. You see, it's not only man who is supposed to put his gaze down when a woman who is passing by in the town, in the city, he should not look at another woman at her private parts with desire, with bad desire, with wrong desire, right? So similarly, woman as well. So this is Surah An-Nur, verse 31 to 30, right, with chapter 24. Say to the believing men that they lower their looks and guard their private parts, and say to the believing women that they lower their looks and guard their private parts. You can see here in this verse it is saying the guarding of the private parts and the eye, they are the gaze is connected, right? Because in hadith says the eye, the gaze is one of the arrows of the shaitan, is one of the arrows of the shaitan, right? So I can lead to misusing the private part, right? So that's why Quran is very concerned about this. We don't want the individual to harm themselves. You see, self dignity is very important in Islam, because if one doesn't have self dignity, he won't be able to protect or preserve another person's dignity, right? So you can see here, this is very clear ayah, right? So prohibition of looking with desire at the opposite gender. Number two, people should be dressed properly. Yes. What is a proper dress? It must cover the aura, the private parts of the body. It is prohibited for a Muslim man to expose his a Muslim or Muslima to expose his or her aura to others, as it is prohibited to look at the aura of someone, right? So you can see here, sometimes people have this lame excuse. They say, okay, we are in a Western country, and all the non-Muslims who are ladies who are on the street, they are wearing like that. So we can see them. They justify their gaze. But you see, the prohibition is very clear, right? It doesn't matter who is that person who is not wearing properly or wearing clothes which are exposing the shape of the body. It doesn't matter who she is. The Islam says a man should not see another person's aura, right? So that means it is connected with the first one, gazing, lowering the gaze. All right. So we are supposed to wear decent clothing, right? Prophet ﷺ said a man should not look at the aura, the body parts, private body parts of another man, see? No a woman of a woman, nor should a man go under one cloth with another man, nor a woman with another, right? So especially when in Islam, when the man is adult, the youth is adult already, they are not supposed to sleep on the bed together. That's why it's Islamic teaching that we are supposed to separate our kids when they are already adult, they are in the adolescent, then we cannot allow them to sleep on the one bed with using one bed sheet or one blanket. We are supposed to separate their bedding, right? So and so this is the Islamic teaching. Why? Because this is the step, this is the stage where we start to teach them about self dignity, preservation of dignity, how to take care of own self, how to respect others privacy, right? It all have to start from home. It have to start from the family. If we don't teach our kids how to protect our own privacy and not to even look into the privacy of our own sibling, if we can teach this in our own house, then this kid will become an individual who will go out of the house and care for others' privacy, right? So that's why all these are very important when we are in the family institution. All right, so I'm using the word aura. So it might be new for some of you, and but for normally countries, Muslim countries, majority Muslim countries, they tend to use the Islamic terms in even their own language. Like in Malaysia, they have many words which are used in everyday language in the Malay usage. They are actually Islamic terms, so it is easy for them to understand. But those countries where Muslims are not doing this yet, actually this is very important. This is part of our civilization, that we are supposed to use those important terms which we are having in our religion. We are supposed to use it in our everyday life, so that it can be introduced to our kids. It can be introduced to our new Muslim brothers and sisters who are coming to Islam. We are supposed to introduce these terms, right? So we don't have to translate it, but use it how it is, right? Like salat, uh, what do you call, marwa, aura, okay, tahara, right? So wudu, evolution. So we don't have to say evolution, we have to use the word wudu, so that we can introduce these terms in our language, and make it part of your language, right? So this how the civilization, Islam doesn't limit civilization. Islam allows civilization, where it allows the Islamic teaching, the language, all to become part of our culture, part of our language, right? So all right, so the limits of aura. For a man, the aura is from the navel to the knee, right? So from the navel to the knee, that part is, he is not supposed to reveal to either a man or to a woman, right? And the aura for woman with respect to a man who is not a mahram is her entire body except her face and hands, right? Face and hands of the woman is not aura, but other than that, the whole body, she is not supposed to show it to a man who is not related, who is a non-relative, whom she can marry, right? Or stranger is the, right, the becomes the mahram, who is not her mahram, sorry. So she cannot reveal this part of the body. With respect to a man who is her mahram, except the husband, does not include the following parts: hair, ears, neck, upper part of the chest, arms and legs up to the knees, right? So this is in respect to a man who is her mahram, except the husband. And here in that case, who is the mahram? For the woman, the brother, father, right, son. So you can see when women is at home, so you can see Islam is a very easy religion. Otherwise, if she is supposed to be 24 hours closing herself, covering herself, then life will become difficult. But at home, when she is among her mahram, there is a leeway for her, right? So you can see hair, ears, neck, upper part of the chest, arms and legs up to the knees, right? So uh, legs up to the knees, right? So not the thigh and from the navel, no, not that, right? Okay. Um Other parts from the knees to the beginning of the upper part of the chest are aura and should not be exposed before anyone, man or woman, except her husband. Right? Headscarf must cover the bosom. وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَلَا يَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ. Surah An-Nur, verse 31. Right? And do not display their ornaments except what appears thereof, and let them wear their head coverings over their bosoms, and do not display their ornaments, right? So the bosoms, the chest part, she is supposed to also cover. The head scarf should be covering the bosoms. Okay, it must not be transparent, revealing what is underneath it, right? So and this goes to both men and women both, right? So we should not uh, be wearing clothes which is revealing the shape of the body. Okay. Sometimes people wear tight clothes or wear clothes which are very thin. These are transparent, right? So in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, I will be a witness for two types of people who are destined for the fire. People with whips like the tails of cows who beat the people, right? Tyrannical rulers who are the enemies of their own people. So this is one type. There are some type of leaders, tyrannical leaders who is carrying whips in their hands and beating everyone. All right, they are zalim. All right, they are enemy of their own people. They do zulum on people. So Prophet ﷺ said, this type of people, he said, I am witness that they are going to the fire. And the second type, women who, although clothed, are yet naked, who would be inclined to evil and make people incline towards it. Their their hair style like the humps of camels inclined to one side. They will not enter paradise, and they should not smell its odor, whereas its odor would be smelled from such and such distance. All right. So here you see this type of hadith is called tarhib. We have two types of hadith: targhib, which is encouraging Muslims to practice on something. Tarhib are those hadiths which is trying to instill fear into people's heart so that they can, and they are discouraged from certain actions, right? So tarhib hadiths are there as well. So this is one of the tarhib hadiths, because you see, if you talk about psychology, we need both. We need encouragement and we need also discouragement, right? So that's why we need both. We need targhib and we also need tarhib. Uh, so you can see, and that's why sometimes when we have these Muslima fashion shows, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with creativity. Ladies can go and have style, they can have fashion, but make sure the body, the private part, the aura is not revealing, right? So we have Islamic fashion now, but sometimes Islamic fashions, they go overboard, and they start to neglect the basic principles of covering, right? So we should be careful with that. Otherwise, if we can care for all those principles, then it's okay, right? We can have creative covering fashion clothes. It must be loose and not tight fitting so as to define the parts of his or her body. Right? This type of clothes falls under the previous hadith, dressed but not yet naked. Right? Tight jeans and other types of trousers worn with sweaters, shirts or t-shirts are considered un-Islamic, and it is prohibited for a Muslim woman to wear them outside even during free time. Right? You see, when we talk about clothing and the rules and regulations of clothing, what people don't actually uh, realize is that actually Islam is concerned about the pride, the dignity, the decency of an individual, right? So that's why Islam is having these rules and regulations, right? So clothing which is indecent, clothing which is revealing, all right? So what happens actually, a person is losing their own dignity in it. A person is disrespecting their own selves, right? So and Islam doesn't want to do that, right? So it should not be specifically designed for the opposite gender. The Prophet ﷺ cursed women who try to resemble men and men who try to resemble women, and prohibited women from wearing men's clothes and vice versa, right? So this is hadith is there, right? So men should not be wearing clothes of a woman, and woman should not be wearing clothes of a man. It should not be specifically designed for non-Muslims as required by their religion, tradition, or culture. It should not apply to those clothes which are common among people and don't carry any religious or cultural specifications. You see, sometimes people start to wear clothes which are actually is specifically meant for another culture, or specifically meant for a certain religion. All right, so people have to we have to be careful, right, that we cannot imitate other people's clothing, which are especially those clothing which are attached with the religious teaching of another religion, right? So like whoever imitates a people is one of them, right? So man tashabbaha biqaumin fahuwa minhum, right? So here also you see sometimes people will see this as a type of lack of freedom. No, it's not lack of freedom, right? Yeah, it is actually a type of dignity as well, preserving dignity, because why we have to imitate a clothing which is actually part of another religion, because it is meant to, when we talk about religion, that means that clothing is designed to worship someone else, another god, right? Or another fulfill another culture, right? So sometimes we are carried away in the name of fashion. We are carried away and we start to imitate. This is not permitted in Islam. We are supposed to stay away from this type of imitations, right? But when talking about imitation, you see, uh, there are things which are good in another good in another people. That is okay. Like for example, when Salman Farsi radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who was from Persia, and he gave the opinion to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that when they have war in Faris, in Persia, they dig trench. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is taking his opinion, all right, because why? Because in that case it is beneficial, right? So if we are borrowing things from another culture, but it can be changed, it can be changed into beneficial activities, right? That means when we borrow from another culture, we are supposed to clean, filter it from their philosophy, from their purpose, objective, then it's okay. We have mihrab in Islam, right, in our masjids to indicate Qibla, but where is the mihrab taken from? Right, first mihrab was borrowed from Byzantine architecture because in Islam they were having always difficulty to indicate Qibla because masjid was not having mihrab. So every time people will enter a masjid and there will be a confusion. Where is the Qibla? Right, so Walid, when he was the governor in Sham, he saw that the Christian churches are having this niche where they used to place the idol and the statue of Mary or Jesus. So what they did, they borrowed that architecture shape and took it to Islam, but they decided to put it on the Qibla side of the wall and empty it from the statue, no statue, and change the whole purpose. That instead of what you call symbolizing a individual, it will be pointing to a Qibla, right? So you can see when we are borrowing things from another culture, it is okay, but make sure we are supposed to filter the philosophy, we are supposed to filter the original purpose, and then we give it a new purpose, right? So like I always tell my students, the traditional Japanese clothing is very covering. It covers a lot. So might be we can borrow that and do a little bit of alteration and introduce it into our clothing. So you can see the purpose will change, right? So and then it will be, in that case it is not under this category of prohibited imitation, right? So all right, men should not use gold and pure silk, right? So this is prohibited for men, all right? Prohibition of excessive beautification, right? So excessive beautification excites people. Example, heavy makeup, strong perfume, and sexy clothes, all right? Now, this is meant for ladies who are going into among these strange people, strange men, strange streets, right? Now, there is a discussion going on whether a moderate amount of beautification to make themselves presentable, especially women who are in the workplace, Muslim women, right? So a moderate beautification or a beautification through which they can carry themselves, that is not prohibited. What is prohibited here is tabarrujul jahiliya, right? Where excessive, where intentionally woman wants to reveal herself, that is prohibited, right? But the beautification to present herself, to make herself presentable in the workplace, in her family, to the husband, to the children, that is not prohibited, right? According to a hadith, when woman puts her perfume and goes among people so that its scent reaches them, she is an adulteress, and an eye which is attracted to her is that of an adultery. Right? So this is in Nasai, right? Because it will lead to that first ayah which we discussed, that the man and woman are supposed to put their gaze down, but when the perfume is excessive, then it attracts a strange man to look at the one who is wearing that perfume. Okay, khalwa, prohibition of khalwa, privacy. Khalwa denotes a man and women being alone together in a place in which there is no fear of intrusion by anyone else. So there exists an opportunity for sexual intimacy. So you can see here Islam is actually trying to protect the individual, protect the individual from damaging their dignity, harming themselves. All right. Islam prohibits halwa between a man and a woman who are outside the mahram relationship. That means they are strangers. The term mahram denotes a relationship either with close blood ties or by marriage of such degree that marriage is permanently prohibited. This is a term mahram, all right, which is used commonly in Muslim societies. A mahram is husband, any male relative with whom marriage is permanently prohibited, father, father-in-law, grandfather, son, brother, uncle, or nephew. All these are mahram for the woman, right? The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever believes in Allah and the last day must never be in privacy with a woman without there being a mahram of hers with her. For otherwise, shaitan will be the third person with them. Right? So this is another hadith, right? Prophet ﷺ also said, beware of entering where women are. A man from the Ansar asked, O Messenger of Allah, what about the in-law? He replied, the in-law is death. In-law here means the sister-in-law, right? Um, so you can see when it goes with the mixing with the non-mahram, all right? So Islam is teaching us that we should protect ourselves. Okay, prohibition of boyfriends and girlfriends, all right? It is against the prohibition of looking with desire at the opposite sex, all right? It entails privacy, khalwa. This practice is automatically accompanied by having romance or even sex, all right? So that's why this is also prohibited. All right, you see here, all these 5 things which we discussed here is actually in a way preserving the family institution. Because if these 5 things we are not careful, the individual, the man and the woman, if they are not careful, then that whole value of family institution is no longer there, right? If people start having extra sexual relationship, then they will say no need to have a marriage. So you see that institution is damaged already, right? So that's why all these 5 things are meant to protect, to uphold, to give importance to family institution. Okay, criteria of, so now we have the do's and don'ts of people who are not married. We have discussed that. Now we are going into the criteria of selecting spouses when one is intending to get married, right? So the Prophet ﷺ said, a woman is married for 4 things: her wealth, her family status, her beauty, and her religion. So you should marry a woman for her religion, or you will be a loser, right? So sometimes people, when they want to marry, when they want to choose a spouse for themselves, they have very materialistic intention, right? How? they want to see, make sure the woman they want to marry is wealthy, or they want to marry someone who is the family status politically, they are strong in politics, they are strong, they have a family name. Some they want to marry because they want to marry the most beautiful woman in their place, right? Uh, so the Prophet is saying there is another reason we should be the another element we should be looking at, and that is a woman is good in her religion. All right, that means she is a pious woman. So no matter if a woman is pious, if is she is not beautiful, doesn't matter. She doesn't have family status, doesn't matter. She doesn't have a lot of wealth, doesn't matter. Because the main thing, the real wealth is the taqwa. Right? So that's why Prophet ﷺ is saying, if we are marrying a woman because of other things other than the religion, then we are losing. We are loser. Right? The Prophet said, when someone with whose religion and character you are satisfied asks for your daughter in marriage, accede to his request. If you do not do so, there will be corruption and great evil on the earth. So here also you can see in this hadith, another Prophet ﷺ is providing us with a guideline, right? That when we are selecting spouse, right, for our children, right? So someone whose religion and character we are satisfied. That means we should go for that this type of candidate, right? So religion, character, family status, beauty, wealth. So you can see the number one should be religion, and then character. Then other things will come into line, right? Not the other way around. Okay. Now, when we are in the marriage, husband, wife, right? So there should be mutual rights and obligations to help each other to follow the right way and practice Islam and safeguard him or her against evil and sin. Right? So, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara wa quduhan nasu wal hijaratu alaiha. Alright? So you can see so at-tahrim verse number 6. Um, O you who believe, save yourselves and your family from a fire whose fuel is people and stones, over which you are set angels strong, severe, who do not disobey the commands they receive from Allah, but do what they are commanded. So you can see here, uh, you see, it is not the responsibility of the husband only, but the wife as well. If the wife is, she noticed that there is something not right with the children, not right with the husband, she is also responsible to save the family from the fire. She is also supposed to, Islam gives her the right? We don't want this normally some type of conservative family, the woman cannot open her mouth even for the right things, right? No, it's, in Islam it's not like that. Mutual rights and obligations, right? To be kind, understanding, forgiving, and treat the other side in a tender and loving manner. Right? So this is Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's report. She said, khairukum li ahlihi wa ana khairukum li ahli. This is Sunan at-Tirmizi, Kitabun Nikah. The best of you are those who are best to their families, and I am the best to my family. Because Prophet ﷺ, whatever he said, he practiced himself. Right? Lima takuluna ma la taf'alun. Why we are saying things which we don't practice ourselves. So Prophet was not like that. Right? So here Prophet is telling us who is the best among you, who is the most respectful among you is the one who is good with his family, with his family members, right? With his wife, with his children. Then that is the best person in the society, in the community. Okay, to meet the psychological and physical needs of each other, right? We are supposed to do that. Focus on positive aspects and appreciate them. Avoid focusing on negative ones and try to tolerate them, right? So you see, this is a very important guideline for a good marriage, right? That we are supposed to focus, all right, on good things so that we can appreciate each other. We avoid focusing on negative things, all right, and we tolerate. Right? So this is a basic teaching of the Prophet ﷺ. A believer should not hate his wife merely because she has some negative traits. If he finds some disagreeable things in her character, he will appreciate a lot of other good morals, right? So sometimes people only find one defect and then they make decision, and that's all. That's it, right? Actually, there are 9 other good things in her. So we should be searching for those things and tolerate with that one defect which we have seen. And similarly goes to the wife when it comes to the husband, right? Every side has to avoid any extramarital intimate relationship or such relations that may cast suspicion on his or her behavior, right? So this is very important when it comes to husband and wife. It should not be the husband making her jealous because he can talk to other women, all right? And the wife should not do that as well. We should avoid extramarital, the trust. We should not behave in any manner that will, what you call, in a way, disturb the trust. Okay, and the last slide of today, duties towards children, selection of good parents, right? All right, so this is the parents' duties towards the children, right? That we should be making effort to be the best of the parents. Right to legitimacy, right? Legitimate father and mother, prohibition of legal adoption, the right of the children to retain his original family's name and to know his real parents, right? So this is very important. In Islam, we allow, actually, we are more towards guardianship instead of adoption. Because in Western family adoption, what happens, the child loses her original name and they have to carry on a new family's name, all right? But in Islam, it is not permitted to change the real name and nasab of the child. We will maintain that child's nasab and the real family name, all right? And we are more concerned about the guardianship, all right? That we look after the child who is orphan, but do not change their name. Right to life, all right? You see, children, kids, they have these rights, right? They have the rights to have good parents, right? That means husband and wife have to make sure that they cannot behave to the children in a way that they fall under the category of bad parents, because it is a right of the child to have good parents, to get all the benefit of the good parents. All right, so it is a right of the child to come to this world with the legitimacy, right? So that means the man and woman have to make sure that they should be married, they should have a legitimate marital relationship before they have a child, right? right to life, right? Uh, the abortion, which will be explained in week 7, where we'll be talking about this. So the child, once they are conceived, it is a responsibility of the woman, the mother, and the husband to continue the pregnancy and allow that child to come to this world. Right? A right to equal life chances, no discrimination between male and female. This is also the right of the child. Right? It's not like if the girl comes, then the father saying, "I don't want to look after her. We don't want to have a give her away to the orphanage." No, right? So they have equal rights, no matter it is male or female. Right to general care, right? Spiritual, material, educational, intellectual, all these are the right of the child. The parents have to make sure that they provide all these to their children. They have to work hard. They have to work extra hours, overtime, all right? So that they can provide these things to the children. Why? Because this is their rights. Their education is their rights, right? They need to have proper clothing. They need to have food which is full of nutrition, right? So if the parents are busy only feeding their kids with junk food, this is not the right of the child. The right of the child is to eat food which is food of nutrition, right? Spiritual training. It is the right of the child to learn religion, learn ethics, morality, enhance themselves spiritually before they can go on their own. It is their right to learn this from their parents, right? So this is the today's class. You see, we cannot cover. There are many things to cover when we talk about family ethics, but our discussion, our class here is just to provide you windows so that you can work on yourself. You have the guideline, you have some main points, so you can read on your own. You should buy the book of our, you see, this is the book which is IIIT book, Ethics and Fiqh for Everyday Life. All right. All the subjects which we are teaching in this class, IIIT published these textbooks which are written by us, by the lecturers. You can buy it, you can benefit from it. If you are a teacher, you can use these notes and teach these classes. If you are parents, you can use it for the enhancement of your tarbiyah, how you can become better parents, better husband, better wife. All right. So so Sheikh Shahran,
Yes.
that's all for today. We have covered our slide. So inshallah, next week we can go to another part of our life. I think we are discussing the professional and business ethics next class.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Can you just answer very quick this question? There are a few of them. Don't have to elaborate long. First one from Brother Brother Ghalib. Is there anything in Quran or Sunnah regarding prohibition of transparent dress for men? That's one question. The other one, why gold and silk is prohibited for many people? Shukriya. And what's the other one? Oh, is there any aura of woman for her husband? Short one, bro.
Okay, the first one was which one?
Is there any aura of woman for her husband?
Okay. Actually, it's clear on the slide. You see the parts which she is covering from her mahram, the father, the brother, all those parts cannot be revealed to the mahram. But other than that, the part from her navel to the knee, the thigh, those can be revealed to the husband. But you see, we also have to be careful in this, that it doesn't mean the woman have to be naked every time in front of the husband. All right. Because sometimes some husbands they expect that, right? So in normal circumstances, when the woman is at home with her husband and the kids are there as well, right? So in that case, the decent clothing is expected from all the family members, so that we don't teach this indecency to our kids, to our children, right? So but when they are alone, the husband and wife, then in that case she can reveal those part of her body which she doesn't reveal even to her mahram family members, right? So I think this should be the approach when we are dealing with this issue, right?
Okay.
So all right, then the question that's saying that whether um, the you see the hadith is there, right? Which is saying that the revealing clothes or the thin clothes, all right? Quran is talking about putting the gazes down, right? So we have to understand, because I do not understand why the question is meant like that, that with the Quran, only in the Quran, because we have to be careful. We don't want to fall in this trap that we only practice what is revealed clearly in the Quran, because as a Muslim we are supposed to see that the hadith is the tafsir of the Quran, right? So most of the things which we discussed today about we revealing the aura, what do you call halwa, and all these things are actually in a way they are tafsir and commentary of the ayah, which is saying putting the gaze down, all right. Is the So it is emphasizing that Quranic ayah, right? So we should be having this approach, right? Because if we are only looking for things which are clearly mentioned in the Quran, then we are following in this trap of, if you are studying with Dr. Fatmir, uh, the deconstruction of the religion, which is actually one of the moves of the post-modernist worldview, right? That we deconstruct the religion. That means we only take the Quranic ayah and we abandon the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, in the hadith, right? So this not should be the case. We should be looking at it where the role of the hadith, because if you take class with us, we are planning until now, inshallah, might be I'll be teaching introduction to Islamic jurisprudence, so where we cover these type of topics, that where what is the role of the hadith in relation to the Quran, right? How does it emphasize the verses of the Quran? That is another discussion which we cannot do here because of the time. Another question, which was it,
Yeah,
Sheikh
a quick
Shahran?
one. Why gold and silk is prohibited for men?
Why? Say it again.
Why gold and silk is prohibited for men? Why gold? Men cannot allow to wear gold and silk.
Okay, so that one, what I remember is that the actually it falls under a discussion of things which are meant for women. One explanation for that is that the jewelry, clothing meant for women are not supposed to be worn by men. So silk and gold is meant for women, not for men. One explanation is that. Another explanation is when men wears gold, or when men wears silk, it leads them to takabbur, right? It leads them to kibr, which is actually prohibited in Islam, right? But if you go through the hadiths, and there are other explanation where Prophet ﷺ is prohibiting clearly, men should not be wearing gold, all right? Even for silver, there is special measurement for, but silk, of course. But then we also have exception to the rule. If the doctor prescribes gold for the, like for example, tooth made out of gold, or any body part damage which can be gold can be used, in that case is permitted. Similarly, silk, if there is any type of skin disease where silk cloth is supposed to be worn so that the man doesn't harm himself, in that case the Sharia will permit. So exception to the rule is there.
Okay, Prof. Thank you so much. We have 4 or 5 good questions on the chat. I'll forward to you. Maybe next week you can highlight it.
Yes,
some are very good, like case of rape, case of this.
Thank you very much for the good questions, for your listening to the class, attending the class. The question shows that you are paying attention, you are paying interest. That is very good, and your comments are actually going to assist us to further enhance the IIIT books, IIIT activities. Right? So thank you very much for your questions as well.
Inshallah. Thank you. As Prof. Farid said, next session he'll be teaching on introduction to Islamic jurisprudence. We are in the syllabus now, inshallah. There will be another interesting subject that we can learn next time. See you next week, Doctor. Inshallah.
Okay.
Stay healthy, inshallah. See everyone tonight. Assalamualaikum
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.